Ko Aita filmaren diogu hasiera orain. Buenas tardes.
Good afternoon. We're going to hold the press conference of the official section of the film Aita, Father. We've got the director José María Alvarado, the actor Luis Pescador, and Miquel Goenaga. Okay, first question. Hi, Giovanni Tone from the Essere Italia, a magazine from Italy. The title of the film, Aita, which means father, is it because it's a very personal film that you dedicated to your son at the end, or because it's a type of essay, because I think the film's a big essay. The film, symbolically speaking, with all of the memories, and the house itself is a character. Is that the expression of any type of paternity? Because other directors would have chosen the mother, but in this case you chose the father. Very simply. Hi, good afternoon. Yes, well, I think the question, you've got the keys. It's a very personal film, and it's dedicated to my son, and it's a film which is shot within my own house, where I seek the identity of the house itself, and on the other hand, the father is a symbol, not only in the Basque Country, which is very important, by the way, but also even the film finishes with some images on this celluloid that decompose themselves. It's dedicated to our ancestors. The father means memory and something related to our ancestors. I liked it. I liked your film very much. I liked your film very much. And you're talking about memories, but this film is completely different in that other film. Linea Recta had this type of minimalism, which is very representative of the human condition, very representative of a character. Here, the character, at least the caretaker, the guardian, and the priest are not only characters, but they are intermediaries of some sort of discourse upon love and death, but there doesn't exist any. No, it's not developed. That's what psychologically, yes. That change of look, which not a change of style, but change of conception, this is something just a contingency for this film, or it's a different approach that you're going to take in your work? Both films are quite opposite, but I think that they aren't so much. The previous film, La Linea Recta, at the end of the day talks about the impossibility of discovering certain mysteries in human being. No matter how much fiction in the previous film, there wasn't any plot. The character remained as a mystery. It was a film, that is to say, that didn't explain anything. It was cinema which was non-explicative. In this film, Aita is a bit more explicative, and if that character in that film, I expressed the impossibility of getting into the mysteries of human beings, and here these are archetypes, and they're barely sketched out, and I was more interested by the matter and the spaces and the emotional states. Yes, it's much more emotional, but this one is a story. It's not naturalist. The other film was more naturalistic. And I think there are different searches to find something that's similar, but these are searches which are quite different in its shape. Similar. What I'm seeking, in what sense? In my search, yes, perhaps, but the form is completely different. I'm trying to find one form to do it, but it appears on its own. I'm not going to tell you what my next film is. I don't want to foresee it or forecast or say anything either as regards to my next film. Hi, good morning. I would like to ask several questions, if you allow me. The first is as regards to the lighting, which is quite powerful. The house is enormous, each room is different, so therefore I'm not too sure whether you addressed it along those lines, because each room has a characteristic and peculiar lighting, and then also the projections on the walls and the windows. Where did they come from? What are those images, and how old are they? And then something that you say at the beginning of the film, and I'm not too sure if I remember it very well. It says, history goes by slowly, but life is fast. Does that mean that you're going to say, well, you're taking the piss out of us, or were you going to try to tell us that the film was going to be very slow? There's three questions. Let's hope I can answer the three of them. I'll start with the last one, which is the one I remember. Well, the dialogues don't belong to me. The dialogues pertain to the characters. They're real facts. There's no intervention in the house. There's no work done. It's filmed as such as I received it. We haven't painted or not painted. We've not taken away or put any furniture there. Luis is the caretaker and guardian, and that's how he finds it every day. The characters, all of them, play themselves, and the dialogues are their own. That is to say, when he says, when the priest says, time goes slowly here, and I said, well, gosh, this could be the meta language, but nobody even read that. Nobody even told him. I don't remember if I said, well, start to talk about time, because it was going to rain. And they start to talk about the weather, and when they were seeing the excavations of the archaeologists, we took advantage, and as they were doing that, we filmed them. And Mikel, the priest, who wasn't, because he's at a clergy meeting, that's the way the conversation went. There wasn't the intention. And then when you rethink about the images in the editing room where we prepare a film like this, there you place it in where I believe, can give more meaning to the film. And in that sense, they can talk about what happens in the house and what the film is going to be like. But it serves as an introduction, but it wasn't foreseen because there's no pre-prepared, shall we say, dialogue. The second question I don't remember. Well, when seeking the memory, the essence of the house, I made the film to try to find the essence of the house. As there were no objects, there wasn't any physical memory of the object, of the people who lived there beforehand. On the walls, I thought, when I saw the walls, I started to maintain a dialogue with the walls because I thought they were like paintings. There was a film called Decasia of a North American filmmaker called Bill Morrison. I think it dates back to 2002. It's one of the most important films of what is called the found footage. Found footage. We want to find, they try to find material in the filmotex, and you make a film with this type of footage. And I saw it and I thought that it's a film, it's a symphony of images which are decomposed, and they maintained a dialogue. There was a possible dialogue with the textures on the walls of the house, and I thought I had to try to find a way to achieve this dialogue. So it occurred to me to go to the Basque Filmotheque and to try to find very old images of the Basque cinema. And I thought the most oldest memory of the Basque cinema, of the first things that were filmed here, and I found images of the first film called Edurne Modista de Bilbao, of a director who's called Telesforo Gil. He died. It's the first fiction film of the Basque cinema. It's a film that there's only little pieces because the footage was lost. Then there's films of anthropologists, and these were 1920s and 30s, Father Barandiran and Father Laburu. Most of the images that appear in the film stem from there. So therefore, I want to do it to these old images of the Basque cinema, to link it to the memory of the house, and to maintain a dialogue to see what emerged from that. At the end of the day, to make a film is to establish bridges, set up bridges, first of all, between the director and the film, and then those bridges are established between the film and the audience. What I do is to compile all of this material, in some cases transform them. The simple fact of placing a camera and recording and filming it, and then we aged the film, and mainly set up these images, these bridges between those elements and those in the film. And that's how we made the film. And I forget the third question. The lighting. Yes. Well, Jimmy Jim Ferrer, it's his second film, the director of photography. He's a marvelous, I think he's a guy who's got an extraordinary amount of talent. I've never met any director of photography with his talent. He did Candes Ocels, produced by Luis Viñarroc, photography with extraordinary, all on location. It was this was his first film in interiors. It all looks natural. He placed one light there just to justify his work, but it's a work of waiting for the suitable light to know the house and time and to see when we light the best and to film at that time, at the moment. It's very naturalistic and very patient way of filming. I would like to add that the film has been shot in a period of 3 years in different periods of time where he's moved with a minimum team to capture those moments. And there's some autumn light and there was spring lighting as well, because the strategy from the startup, from the outset was, well, we were going to change time for money. Because I'm not going to pressure him to make a film in 4 or 5 weeks. I'm going to allow him to have time, because in the post-production is to work. Post-production is very difficult, but we're going to do it with a small team, because otherwise there's no other possible way of addressing a film of this genre in this way, in any other way, which makes give you a lot of creative freedom at the same time, because there's a lot of flexibility. Hi, good afternoon. Congratulate the actor above all, Luis, of the film. Allow me, and because of respect to the festival, I'm not going to give you an opinion. In the film, amongst the films I've seen, your film amongst them all, or those that are projected in a hard disk, the film is going to save money. That is to say, because today we projected not on celluloid, as happened with Histories of Lisbon, but a type of hard disk, and I don't know the terminology, quite advanced. I would like to know what you think of this type of projection vis-a-vis the future. Well, the system is called DCP. It's the future of copies, making copies. So I like celluloid very much. My profession in advertising, for example, director, I've never recorded in video because I don't feel comfortable there. I don't know it too well. My clients don't authorize me to film in 35 millimeters. I don't. However, I made it with a video. I'm glad I did it with a video, because the economy of doing this allows me to make a film with this freedom. And this is a circumstance in the times we're living in. I'm not in favor or against. It's the present. It's the moment we're living in. And in Aita, we're in favor of 35 millimeter material, because we see it's there and it's in decadence, and it's nostalgic because it's dying. I don't want to kill it at all, 35 millimeter shooting in 35 millimeters, but the times we're in, other times we're in, to confront and to fight it against giant windmills. I don't think it makes much sense. Cinema, you've got to be able to do it. We do it with a certain amount of freedom, and video, for better for worse, it gives you a different language. And visually, Aita, I believe it has a lot of visual virtue. We've treated the video as a video, not trying to make it cinema. And this is like painting, acrylic and oil paintings. Trying to make transparencies of the veil of a painter like Velázquez with acrylic paint is very difficult. But each material has its expressive possibilities. And then as regards to the future of copies or non-copies, I can explain something. There's a great paradox. On the one hand, we've made the film with the system, and then as the cinema theaters are not all equipped to be able to put this hard disk and project it, we're going to have to make 35 millimeter copies. And that'll be another way, or a new rereading of the same film, because to a certain extent, in certain cinemas, you'll have 35 millimeter copies. Quite possibly, you'll be able to see the focus will be not as neat as it was, but I like this film better in projected video. The producer allowed me to choose. There's a 35 millimeter copy, and there's an EFP, which is the hard disk. I wanted to project it in DCP in the festival because this film is treated and done. Everything that's been done in the filming was for video, and it was filmed in video, so therefore in the video format. That's one proposal, and that's the way. And I would prefer to do it in 35 millimeters, but the video has allowed me to give me the freedom to make this film. In the current situation, 35 millimeters, I wouldn't have been able to have 3 years to have this and have this creative freedom to do so. No, impossible in 3 years. Yes, there's a question in the back.
Yo quería, bueno, primero felicitar.
I want to congratulate you because the film is completely different to the types of films that we usually see. Quite different, by the way. And knowing your background risk and you like to run risks in production, congratulate you to continue along that path and for a long time. By the way, I didn't get to see La Línea Recta, but I know the straight line, but I know Daniel, and so therefore I know more or less what you mean. And you've talked about lighting, but the frames look like paintings. I don't know whether you had in mind, or you, Jose Maria, had any style, because now you talked whether, and I was going to ask you whether you had in mind that it would remind you of some sort of paintings, and you've talked about Velázquez, but I'm not sure whether the Baroque is there as regards to the lighting in the film, and whether in the script you've talked about the fact things emerged as they came along, but there must have been, you must have thought about a structure and lighting, if at the end that emerged, or how did that, or was it something that you premeditated, you thought it was going to come out, or did that emerge on the go? And then talk about the two scenes that have surprised me quite a lot, is especially the visit of the children and the visit of those adolescents who enter into the house, and whether were you shooting the issue of it being natural, or did they truly come in and did they really steal? Yes. Well, I'm going to start by the end. All of the characters that intervene in the film are real. Let's say these are people who play themselves, and they recreate situations or facts that have happened in the house, obviously made in fiction. But in the specific case of these thieves, these are three kids in town. Luis knows them very well because the doors were busted open, and they were caught by the police, and they'd been reported, but they didn't know I was the director of the film. And we put an advertisement to see who in the town wanted to appear in the film, and for my surprise, these three kids turned up. I said, well, geez, these are the thieves. These are the guys. They've still got to go to court. And I said, well, this is very interesting, and we proposed this. And what are we going to do? I said, enter into the house and break things. And I said, well, break, yeah, but that's what you've got to do. But no. The police, we're not going to call the police. And they thought it was like a game and very fun. And with this commitment with reality that I started off from, they came along, they broke the door down, which was already broken, the same door. The day you got in, when you went, how did you go in? No, don't. They thought, they didn't even know I'd rented the house for me. Luis was very angry. I told Luis not to come along. If I see them, I'll kill them. I said, Luis, don't come on that day. I want to go. No, that's the truth. That's the way it was. That's the way things emerged. The whole film, the archaeologists, we were preparing for the shoot, and they said, hey, there's an archaeologist from town. They want to talk to you. He said, what? I'm not always in town, but I took advantage that I was there. I said, well, I want to make some, we're going to do some excavations. We believe there's some bones here. And I said, but with the condition that we film it. It wasn't foreseen. And the kids visiting the house, this is something that was done precisely because a lot of kids came into the house to steal. I thought, well, if we make the kids go in and to get to know the house, perhaps they will understand it a bit more and maybe they'll respect it a bit more, which is not very useful, who knows, at the end of the day. And we've recreated it slowly but surely, very naturally, to make a film which is not a naturalist film, it's a story. But that was the proposal of the film. And as regards to whether there wasn't any script, nothing. The only thing I thought of was how I was going to find this memory. And when I saw, I found this in archives way before, but this was I had to go back to shoot it later on. I didn't know how they were all going to fit into the film, but physically I couldn't manipulate them because a filmotech, it takes a long time to get permission and authorization. And the shoot, well, on a day-to-day, we more or less had a thing, well, we said, well, okay, pruning. Well, okay, we pruned, and what worked. There wasn't any specific script. I like an artist called Robert Morrison. He's a North American. He does plastic artwork, and he says he works with intuition. He doesn't address what he's going to do. This happens a lot in processes, non-industrial creative processes. Barceló Tapia says that when he's going to paint as of late, he wants to confront the canvas in white and doesn't know what he's going to paint. In cinema, I don't know why. Apparently needs, because how it's expensive and needs industrial processes, it is organized in that way. But cinema can be organized with a small team, with a producer who's a bit crazy, and I would say, because a week before I didn't dare to ask the priest whether he was going to appear. Where he wanted to appear, I said, Luis, I haven't got a character for the priest because I don't dare talk to him. Let's have some dinner, let's drink a lot of cider and see if we've got the atmosphere and I can convince him. Because directly to tell a priest, he's going to say no. Well, that's the case. Obviously, all the references have emerged, and they've emerged. I saw them. I said, well, no, I'm going to not do this because they're not mine, and others, I let myself go. References to Velázquez. And well, this is like Velázquez. There are other references that have been mentioned. I've not given in to some of them, but I've undertook them naturally. I haven't sought them out, the truth be said. We went along with the camera, we placed it there, and away we went. And I wanted to bring a director of photography from abroad so that there's no vice that had nothing to do with the house or anything Basque. I wanted something quite virgin so that there was complicity, but we discovered something new, because otherwise the film was going to be something which was already old and worn out. In any case, I don't agree with what you said, because the way you're explaining it's totally improvised, but mathematically calculated each frame, each sequence, each frame, there's a composition, albeit with the natural light of the house, with the structures of the house itself and so on. These are the ones that precisely remind you. They could be Rothko or Tapias types of painting, but it was very meticulous when shooting there. You can't just place the camera and see what's going on there. There was aesthetic taste, knowledge, undoubtedly, which was assimilated of what is art and specific painting, because he's also a plastic artist, and that to a certain extent has emerged, well, because it's something that he knows about, because it's integrated, but some can remind you of Caravaggio or Rivera or Tapias. This man, when he looks up, he looks like a saint, a Rivera saint, painted in painting. He didn't take a painting and reproduce it, but the knowledge of who Rivera was, or the light of Velázquez or Caravaggio, is implicit in the film. Of course it is. Perhaps I've understood it. It's an improvised film. There's no improvisation. There is a day-to-day preparation. We filmed one thing, we didn't like it, we were convinced. We had a method of work which allowed us to film things again. So the light didn't work, for example. We said, we'll shoot another day. There was quite prepared and meticulous work in that respect. We could shoot things that we didn't like and we got rid of them. And we spent hours looking for the frame. Remember, Luis? Yes, too many. The production team said, well, you said, well, what are we going to film today? Was, as we didn't know what light we were going to have every day. Well, there wasn't a work plan which said, well, we're going to shoot this, that, and the other today and tomorrow. No, there was a treatment that we wanted to film daily things and create a fiction so that there was maintain a dialogue with the images on the walls. And the dialogues that emerged, 70 hours of footage were filmed. Luis has seen the film. I hadn't seen the film. He doesn't know what's being edited or not. There were a lot of conversation, a lot of letters. I had the feeling there had to be a commitment with reality and recreate part of my family personal history, but then I realized that it was a mistake. I shouldn't didn't want to get too personal, but it was. What I would like to highlight is that the process was that I've been at work in my creative process, which is much closer to the types of work of plastics arts than the conventional way of making cinema, which are assumed by directors, but only from an economic standpoint, not creative. You can start up from a handicraft sort of approach, and it's all of the approach, from the approach of the time of the shoot, how long, and the team, the number of people they're going to use, and the instruments that intervene. So therefore, of course, when something is handmade, it's like as if it were, like I say, it's not like the rest of the cinema that it's made in mass production. So therefore, we have to claim that there continues to be a look like this, that it should, and this type of look should have its space, and it's an obligation to do so, I think.
Sí, siguiente pregunta, por favor.
Next question, please. Congratulations for the film, first of all, and for the producer, because this is something that I've heard a lot in this festival and others, why the Spanish producers in general are concerned about the subsidies that they receive from government departments or regional departments than of the profitability of the film. Well, I've always heard about that people talking about. I don't know what other producers do. You would have to ask them. What's quite clear in my mind is I wager in favor of this type of cinema because I think it's got to exist, because it's a different look on things, because it doesn't form part of your run-of-the-mill cinema, and it's more and more difficult to set up a project of this nature, because when a public TV doesn't, one fails, or another TV, or when the Minister of Culture in Madrid fails, or the institution of cultural arts fails. So it's more and more it becomes difficult to have the systems to be able to finance this type of cinema. This is a reality, by the way. And so therefore what the rest of the producers do, well, they've got a right to make other types of proposals. I could say that in general, in the industry of the cinema industry, not only in Spain but everywhere, what is given more importance to is to want to make the operation profitable and make money. Well, okay, these are different proposals, undoubtedly. In my case, I just simply make them, so I finance them so I can make another type of film. I know that with this type of cinema, I'm not going to make money, but everyone should do what I believe in. What you believe in, I do what I believe in, and that's it, period. And I think money goes and comes. I prefer to have it invested in a project. Invested in a project. The money that I did with advertising, I don't know where I'm going to continue to make film in 2 years' time, because I've invested all of my money in cinema. Hi, good morning. The two actors spoke in Spanish. I would like to know if they speak Basque, or if there exists the possibility that those dialogues could have been in Basque. And then also a scene that drew my attention, what I thought was very powerful, which is the light, the light that's coming to him. I don't know whether it's a type of focus, it's a lamp, or is it light itself? How was the shooting of that specific scene? Well, first of all, the film, the characters, I asked them to speak in the language that they normally speak in. There's no decision on my behalf. Luis Pescador, he's not Basque. Miquel Goinaga, the priest is. Obviously, between themselves, they speak in Spanish. Other characters speak in Basque. Amongst them, so each of them express themselves in the language which they normally do on a day-to-day. Whoever spoke Basque, who spoke in Basque, whoever spoke in Spanish. That was a commitment that I had undertaken, this commitment, because I thought that's the way it should be, not for any other reason. The reality of the house is this: it's in this state, and its surrounding reality with the people in the house, that's the way it is. That's where we started off from. I think that the fact that a film is bilingual in a society which is bilingual like the Basque society is absolutely normal. I think that there should be no type of anything strange there. Let's hope that the film will be accepted in the rest of Spain, and it's assumed as a natural aspect. And I live in Catalonia, where I reside, which is a society which is also bilingual. And that scene, well, it's quite a curious scene. We talked about, and Luis told me stories that he tells me about the lights, and I said, well, we'll prepare it in a couple of minutes. It was the last scene of the film that was shot, and the best thing is for Luis to explain it. It was filmed. Luis, I think it would be better if he explained. Good morning. In my day-to-day life, I'm a person who's quite lonely in the house. I'm always on my own. And I see my colors and my things in the way I see it. So therefore, I see lights, I see shadows. It's not that I'm crazy precisely, but at a given moment, you see a light. And I mentioned this to Miquel and Jose Maria. Miquel, who's a guy, apart from being the priest, we meet together. A lot of the things that we talk about, we talk this on a day-to-day basis. And everything that's seen in the film, well, these are facts that have happened to me, things that have happened with the adventures of the thieves, etc., not only once, but several times. And vandalism in the house, there's been quite a lot of vandalism in the house, so therefore. And the idea is I've been retired now for many years, but I've taken this as a hobby. I feel comfortable in the house. I love photography, so therefore I've got my photos there. So I've got my stories there. And I was telling them to Jose Maria, who's the head of the house, so therefore. And this has caught me. It's a bit overwhelming, actually, what I've done so far. Just being here and talking to you is a bit overwhelming, truth be said. How did we shoot the scenes? Luis is a great actor, by the way. I'm going to confess this to him now. I don't know whether he knows. We followed different strategies. There's one that I'm not forgiven for, but when I saw them, for example, in front of the camera, so well, you get in front of the camera and don't talk until I say action. And once we spent an hour filming without saying action, and they were desperate. They didn't know what to do. At the end, they couldn't care less about the camera. And I said, okay, now talk about what you were talking about. And that's how we shot sometimes. I couldn't repeat this methodology later. Remember that day, don't you? It was quite hard. An hour non-talking, I like to talk a lot, and it was pretty hard on me. Mika said, well, Luis talks a lot. And he doesn't stop talking. I said, okay, Luis, talk in monosyllables. But they're monosyllables for him. That's how we did things. And sometimes also, generally we prepared things separately. We prepared them very quickly. So we talked about, if I talked about what we were going to do, this wasn't going to work. Sometime I tried to prepare something and it just didn't work. It was unreal. So therefore what I did do at one time, I talked to the priest, remember about that day that you told me that about the dead guy and whatever? And I'm going to tell you, he's not going to believe me. He doesn't believe too much about these things of what priests say. And he said he was going to talk about something else. And when they started to talk, he was expecting something else. I thought, he's telling me something that's got nothing to do with it, which is part of the dialogue. So they talked to each other as if it was a prior conversation. These were strategies that I organized in order to find a certain type of freshness in the dialogues. But it's a bit of sarcastic, black noir humor is of the priest. That the dead people can... The last thing you lose when you die is hearing. And he said it as if it happened in Astigarraga, in one of the farmhouses, and I said, don't lie, you're a priest, what are you talking about? He was convinced that that's true, that the bodies subject themselves when they're rigor mortis and there's still a bit of movement. Well, I'd say, hey, listen, don't lie to me. I said, well, that's like a miracle. And that's what we talked about, yeah. Yeah, there was a bit of a game going on between us.
¿Más preguntas, por favor?
Any further questions?
Aquí en la primera fila. Bueno.
Okay, me again. Perhaps I've created my own movie in my head, but I see the film that has to do with memory, and I saw how the character of the guardian remembering about his things in a very relaxed way. But during the thieves and the vandals and the vandalism, it takes place, but I saw it as the fact that the young people nowadays directly forget about, don't want to remember anything, and they forget about memory, and they just go there and destroy things, and to set up and have parties there, etc. So therefore I'd like to know whether the movie in my head is correct or mistaken, or thank you. Well, the strategy of working with what is real means that they're the real facts, but then you build fiction, so therefore the facts are susceptible to interpretations in fiction. Scenes one relate to the other, and the film I make, I don't know if you saw the previous film, I don't want to be explicative, my type of cinema, the movies I make. I want to set up bridges between different ideas in the film, and I leave them open so that the audience can appropriate themselves and draw their own conclusions. I'd never drawn that conclusion because I think it's valid, because the film's not mine. The moment you see it, you may like it, you may not like it, but you appropriate it, you take it on, you say, well, this is not interesting at all, or on the contrary. So I think all interpretations are valid, and that's my proposal, that everybody takes the film onto themselves and to draw one's own conclusions or versions of the film. Just curiosity for the director. What do you think, what have you thought about doing with the house? Good question. I don't know. Make a TV series, I don't know. As we're not going to make him a lot of money with this film, we might destine all the funds to a spa, for example. I don't know. Sex in New York or Sex in Astigarraga. Coño, Luis, gee, Luis, I didn't see this side of you. the soul of the Basque people through sex in Astigarraga. I wanted to take some of the friends of the family and other people, but we couldn't bring everybody along. Sorry about that. The teacher and the kids couldn't turn up, so I'm very sorry about that. I don't know. The house isn't falling down because the roof has been redone, and we'll see. I don't know what I'm going to do with the house, no. What I think is important is that he has exorcised this film, through this film, albeit it's very personal, allow me to say so. You've been able to withdraw over these 3 years a lot of debts that were still pending in your house with a memory of the Basque Country. That house is a metaphor of the Basque Country to a certain extent, and so on. The thing is, I'm entering into personal things, and if he doesn't tell it, I'm not going to tell you either. No, it's a way of being at peace with the house. I'd done an important work in the roof so to make sure it wouldn't fall down, but it was something material, and I didn't have, the house owed me something, and I owed something to the house because of circumstances in life. I don't usually live there, and I felt a void there, and to make a film, I thought that the house has given me, and I've returned something to the house. It's very intimate, but in my personal memory with it, I think we're at peace, where we're starting from zero once again.
Bien, ¿alguna pregunta más?
Any further questions? One at the back, seems right at the back.
El fondo del todo, sí.
Bueno, felicidades por la película.
Congratulations for the film. For the film has a lot of readings, and one of the readings, because I know Luis, and we can see in the house, it's a love story between Luis and the house as well. In any case, and there's something that for me, and perhaps Luis doesn't agree, many of the people that have entered that house have entered because they felt a great fascination of what's inside it. I imagine for all of them are vandals. For me, for example, I always ask, what is there in this house? What has been in the house? I've never entered it, but some of my friends, I'm from Astigarraga, and they entered the house to see exactly what was in it. And I was telling my colleague that it's a pity that couldn't be seen, that they didn't enter only to thieve, but they entered to find out what was in there. After 30-odd years, one day I met Luis, and he showed me the house, and for me it was a marvelous day, by the way. It's a great day. Yes. I thought about this also quite often, what you've just said. The thing is that, just as I said before, the film started from what there was no intention. It was very important to not go and seek, but to find, that say, I need a character to express this, that, and the other. No. I had a commitment with myself, and I accepted and assumed everything to the end with Luis was going to be made with the material that was available, and we put the House of Culture in Astigarraga, we put up something on the billboard, the people that turned up, there was nobody who could express what you've just said. And that was the case. It's a film which is incomplete. I'm sure it's a film that I consider it incomplete. But I like it to be that way. I like imperfect works of art. There are many things that should emerge for someone, for example, who has lived in the house, should be there as well. But the current reality is that the guardian is the guy that lives in the house. I always say, you're the lord of the house because you're the one that takes care of it and looks after it. And that's what you see in the film. In any case, my experience, the people that have entered the house, they've not gone to see something old or history. They've entered as vandals to break the glasses. There are windows that have been broken 4 times. And my life has gone through that experience. No one goes to see the historical side. I've gone to the church. They've even broken the porch in the church. So they're genuine vandals. And then they went in to smoke joints and this, that, and the other. My mission is precisely that. But Luis, you've also told me, well, one day you called me and you said, 2 girls have come from town. They've asked me whether they could serve them the house, and you showed them the house. Yes. Do you think that's good? I said, you show the house to everyone. So people do come in. But we're going through a period of vandalism now, which is another issue. It's not an issue that we should talk about, that Luis has to suffer. But you've said that, yes. Quite often, when I'm there, I spend a lot of hours in the house, and there are people that might leave a restaurant there after lunch, and they say, what's this? Well, I've turned into to explain the history of the house and and the history of Astigarragas. Perhaps I talk too much at times, but I feel very comfortable when I can explain to someone that that house comes from the 11th century and so on and so forth. Okay, it's good, but in the case, a lot of the kids have come in to break things, and then one of the curious things, these vandals, I didn't know who they were, but they knew who I was. And when they were in the shoot one day, we coincided one day having a coffee. I said, "And where's your dog?" Because I've got a little white dog, and I'm always with them. But they knew perfectly well who I was. They knew when I came in and when I left, and that's when they took advantage to break all of those things in the house.
Muy bien, pues muchas
Okay, thank you very much, ladies and gentlemen.